Hello, Quesnel, and welcome to Q Today. I'm Allison Duddy.
And I'm Mitch Vick, and this is our show for February the 8th.
First, we want to again thank Friesen Mediation Services for its sponsorship over the next 2 weeks. And our top stories from The Observer: Council looks at status quo tax increase, and an editorial about distracted driving.
And coming up later in our program, we'll have another installment of Susan McNeil's Stop, Shop, and Save in Quesnel.
Okay, so here at Q Today, we bring you the recent news provided by our partnership with the Quesnel Caribou Observer, combined with a bit of our own commentary. And we also bring you our own stories from the community. Remember, we do just give the highlights here at Q Today, so if you want to get all the details, be sure to pick up your copy of the Quesnel Caribou Observer. Now over to my buddy Mitch here for some news.
Thanks, Allison. Council is now formally meeting to discuss the 2013 budget. Of particular importance to residents of Quesnel will be what happens to their property taxes in the upcoming budget. One option on the table for Council is a status quo budget, which would see a tax increase of 3.4%. To put this into perspective, the average home price in Quesnel is $162,000, and with a 3.4% increase, you can expect to pay an additional $22.62 in taxes. For every 1% increase in taxes, the city can expect approximately an additional $125,000 in tax revenue. The status quo budget and proposed tax increase also maintains all current services and personnel levels. Tax shifting has also been on the radar for Council, but they have opted to not shift any of the property tax burden from the industrial classes to residential or commercial classes. Currently, the industrial classes account for 62% of property tax revenue. This percentage puts Quesnel 5th out of 78, according to the Ministry of Community, Sport and Cultural Development. Where the number 1 spot had the highest taxes for industry and the number 78 spot had the lowest. In terms of residential tax, Quesnel ranked 120th out of 161. Again, the highest number had the lowest taxes. Residents are invited to participate in the budget process on February 25th for a public input session. And on May 6th, the final budget bylaws will be adopted. So what do you think, Allison?
That sounds interesting. You don't ever, we were talking about this before, and you don't want to really pay more taxes, but it does appear from the statistics that you mentioned that we do have some of the highest industrial taxes and some of the lowest property taxes. So
it's a complex issue, you know. We're an industry town, and we want to have jobs and all that, but at the same time, you know,
you want it to be fair.
We want to be fair, right?
Yeah.
And we have a lot of great areas and zones for industry, and we have air quality issues. There's a few give and take issues there, so maybe they should pay a little more, maybe not.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of a tough call, because really, who wants to pay more taxes?
Nobody does.
But
industry doesn't, and we don't.
That's right. That's right. So a little bit more of a balance, maybe. We'll see what happens, I guess, in the coming years, eh?
Yeah.
All right, moving along, in an editorial by Autumn McDonald in Wednesday's Observer titled Simple Fix, she discusses the seriousness of distracted driving, specifically talking or texting on cell phones while driving. McDonald states that 37% of serious motor vehicle injuries and 30% of car fatalities are as a result of distracted driving. That's huge numbers. She admits that while she's not proud of it, she has done it herself, and says the solution is simple. Pay attention to the road and get yourself a hands-free device. McDonald suggests that perhaps we need to look at increasing fines and harsher repercussions, especially for repeat offenders. What's your take on it, Mitch? Are you guilty? Have you done it?
No, well, probably. I can't say definitely, since this became law and this became a hot issue. No, I haven't.
Yeah.
But here's a novel concept, real crazy one. When you're driving, why don't you drive?
Yeah.
Instead of talking or texting on your phone.
That's right. Pay attention to the road. You know, chowing down that cheeseburger or drinking your Tim Hortons coffee or something. not good when you're driving.
No.
You need to be paying full attention to what you're doing. You know, I mean, you're basically driving a however many ton vehicle, you know, that can seriously damage bodies and other people, and so why take the chance, really?
Yeah.
You know? And also in the month of February, police across BC are going to be targeting drivers who operate vehicles while using a handheld device. So if you're one of them, stop and think, is it really worth it?
Well, the annual key tag mailing to BC residents is now underway by the War Amps, which has recently achieved 2 significant milestones: its 95th anniversary and 1.5 million sets of keys returned to Canadians. The theme of this year's mailing, There from the Start, touches on how the association was there for returning World War I amputees in 1918 and has continued to serve amputees across generations up to the present day. Public support of the War Amps Key Tag service allows the association to continue to be there from the start by providing programs such as the CHAMP or War Amps Child Amputee Program and their Matching Mothers Program. Key tags protect any keys, not just car keys, and are more vital than ever with the extremely high replacement cost of keys and remote devices. The War Amps receive no government grants, so for more information or to order key tags, call toll-free 1-800-250-3030 or visit waramps.ca.
They're not kidding about the high cost of replacement of some of these, you know, locking devices and
no
things
kidding.
like that. I know the key for my car, I believe, is around between $200 and $300 to
Yeah.
replace. So definitely well worth it,
It
you know,
sure
for a
is.
small donation to be able to have that little key tag
And
on
so
your
obviously
keys.
people
and
use that service. I know I've
sure.
dropped in several sets of keys into the mailbox with
Yeah.
that little key tag on there. So
You bet. It's definitely a great,
great
service,
program.
for sure. Moving along, Coraloo Senior Secondary recently hosted 34 students and teachers from Shanghai, China, as part of the 9th year of a cultural exchange program, which will see 32 Coraloo students, teachers, and chaperones travel to Shanghai during spring break. The Chinese delegation arrived on January the 25th, and the group participated in multiple activities, including downhill skiing at Troll, music and drama presentations at Coraloo, an indoor soccer tournament at the indoor facility, swimming and a pizza party at the Arts and Rec Center, a movie at the Carib Theatre, winter camping at Gavin Lake, where they experienced snowshoeing, cross-country skiing and sledding. The winter carnival at West Fraser Timber Park was another thing that they took in, as well as a kangaroos game, and a potluck welcome dinner at Coraloo. Now, the exchange program is sponsored and organized by the School District 28 International School Program, and it looks like they had a really great time while they were here. It sounds like they got to partake in a lot of different activities that, you know, Quesnel has to offer. So
that's a
sounds
lot.
like a good
Very
time.
full itinerary.
For sure.
I'm sure they'll bring those memories back to where they came from.
You
in
bet.
China.
And maybe there'll be something in the paper when our students head over to Shanghai. They'll put something in the paper about how their trip was over there.
That's great, yeah. Well, recently on QToday, we discussed a letter titled Ignore Idle No More, written to the Observer by Mike Wright, who wrote a letter to MP Dick Harris about his strong opposition to the movement. Well, in Wednesday's Observer, Arthur and Shasta Topham wrote just as strong of a rebuttal to Wright's comments, saying, Wright is wrong on all claimed assumptions and prejudices contained in his criticism of the Idle No More movement. They go on to say, Wright is dead wrong in attempting to portray the Idle No More movement as a strictly partisan effort on the part of Canada's grassroots First Nations, as his assessment clearly overlooks too many historical facts surrounding the reasons why Idle No More has finally and suddenly burst forth and he's been taken up by First Nations around the world. After a bit of a history lesson on the history of First Nations in BC and Canada, the letter continues. Bearing in mind what the First Nations gave up to the colonists and considering the fact that the federal government was responsible for the creation of the band council system that so many non-natives are now accusing of financial mismanagement, I find it difficult to sympathize in any way with Wright's misguided assertions about how his money is being spent on First Nations. Wright's family may have been here for the past 225 years, but relative to the past 10,000 years of uninterrupted occupancy by First Nations, It pales into significance and serves no useful purpose in any serious discussion of First Nations land claims, the idle no more movement.
This is starting to turn out to be quite a hot topic.
Yeah.
You know, there's really strong opinions for and against. So it's definitely an interesting subject.
Yeah, and I think
sure.
we can expect to hear a lot more strong opinions because the idle no more movement is not losing steam.
That's
so
right. Yeah.
We'll continue to follow this story.
Great. Thanks, Mitch. And now moving on into sports, Super League curling teams continued to fight for playoff spots last week, with the bottom 3 berths still in flux. Douglas Lake Equipment and Cairns Deli faced off in a close battle, finishing with DLE 1 point up at 7-6. The Child Development Centre fought to keep the top spot in their match against Sky High Scaffolding, with the CDC staying on top by taking the game 7-5. Investors Group took an easy win, doubling Frank's Supermarket 6-3. The Billy Barker Casino took down Jar Transportation 9-7, and Willis Harper took the lead against A&W, sliding to a 7-5 win.
In an article submitted by Rick Prosk, a teacher at Carson School, titled Teaching Teamwork, Rick writes about Carson School's annual floor hockey tournament. The event takes place during the dark months of January and February, when weather conditions often prevent students from going outside. While a staff member organizes and oversees the event, it is very much run by the students. Grade 6 students act as team captains, reminding their teams of upcoming games and organizing substitutions. Grade 7 students act as referees and scorekeepers, and staff members play alongside the students, acting as team members while allowing the students to make the important decisions. Kane Clark, a grade 9 student who played for 5 years in the tournament, said, "Floor hockey brought us all together and helped us make new friends. We didn't only have fun, we learned teamwork too." Just goes to show how a simple game of floor hockey can really teach some life lessons there, right?
So true. Way to go, Carson School. All right, well, climate change is a term that has been around for a few years now. It seems that it is generally accepted, but maybe not universally. Here's Nate giving his take on climate change, what it means, and what it means to Quesnel.
Okay, thanks, guys. What's climate change? How does it affect Quesnel? I remember a few years back when people in the Cariboo, and most of Canada for that matter, would scoff at the very notion of our having an impact on the climate. It was the stuff of radicals, people who wanted to change the Canadian way of life. Yes, it would mean no more fun, no more skidoos, no more boats, no more skiing. Oh, yes, you could ski, but anything with petro would be a no-no. Now, just look outside here as I'm taping this. The sun is shining, it's plus 5 degrees, and it's the beginning of February. In fact, breakup may be coming pretty soon. Now, you might have to go a fair distance to find people who don't believe in the science these days. So let's start off on the need for us, not them, doing something about climate change. Okay, who's us? Well, certainly not the people in Quesnel. No, we can't do anything. It's the dreaded government. Now, who's the government? Well, I really think that we abdicate our responsibility seriously when we think about the government as someone else. We are the government. Yes, there's a few lazy, egocentric, foul-mouthed, rise-cracking, arrogant, developmentally delayed people who have a need for popularity, and they gain elected office. But who put them there? You and I. So it's our responsibility to provide good government. And we do this through critical thinking. Ever hear that term? That's right. Not just knee-jerk responses to issues. Give the issue some respect. Our first impulse is not always the best. We need to reflect. We need to give up a bit of our biases in order to reach honest conclusions. So everybody wants jobs, everybody wants growth, but what is the price for exploiting the tar sands, for example? You know, I don't expect to know all the answers, but I do know that there's more than a monetary bottom line. What is the cost to the planet in CO2s? How do we enter this into the ledger? What's the cost to keep our water clean? How do we enter this into the ledger? What will be the cost in terms of displaced families? How do we enter this into the ledger? But we also need to look at ourselves, our actions, not only the government's. And in Quesnel, there's a group who's looking at local solutions. It's called the Quesnel Climate Action Group. They're working on food security issues, for example, buying locally. And in the next few months, I'm going to be interviewing people involved in this cause, doing something locally that may not be the total answer, but could be part of the solution. So stay tuned, and I'll be back in conversation with some local leaders in the fight to drop CO2s and bring environmental sanity to our community. Thanks. Back to you, Mitch and Allison.
Well, pretty important stuff that I'm talking about, and it's really good that we have some people in the community that are minded that way to help clarify that, you know?
Exactly. I look forward to some of the interviews that Nate's going to set up too. Should be good.
Certainly. Well, last week, Big Brothers Big Sisters Quesnel held a Super Bowl draw fundraiser. Any idea who is one of the winners, Allison?
Not really, but I'm sure you're going to enlighten me, Mitch.
I will
Please
try.
do.
It was none other than Tom Walden.
Okay, is that name supposed to mean something? Because
Oh,
it's not ringing a bell. Sorry,
Oh,
you're going to have to fill me in on
Tom
that too.
Walden.
Sorry.
Well, Tom has recently moved to Quesnel from Ontario to be with family, and he's just getting to know Quesnel. What is interesting is that Tom quarterbacked the Toronto Argonauts to victory in the 1945 and 1946 Grey Cups.
Wow.
When he picked up his winnings at the Little Big House this past week, Tom said, "This is a real surprise and a treat, and it's a great welcome to Quesnel."
That's fantastic. Who knew we've got a Grey Cup quarterback hero living here in Quesnel?
We do.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations to you, Tom Walden. All right, as mentioned at the top of the show, coming up now, we have another segment of Stop, Shop, and Save in Quesnel with Susan McNeil. This time, Susan speaks with Wendy Stevenson of Barefoot Diva Boutique. Check it out.
Good day, Quesnel. It's Susan McNeil here. We have a new segment on the QToday show, and it's called the Home-Based Business segment. We're pleased to have Wendy Stevenson here today, and she's from the Barefoot Diva Boutique. So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you.
Glad
Thanks
you're
for
here.
having me.
Yes. So can you tell me a little bit about your business and what you bring here to offer today?
Barefoot Diva Boutique is a resale boutique. Not everything in the store is used. I get a lot of new stuff from businesses that have closed down, or say yourself would go shopping and buy something and just hate it when you get home. So then you bring it to my store and I sell it for you, and somebody else gets the pleasure of something that they will love.
That's awesome. And of course, I love that kind of shopping. Recycling for sure is a good plan.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
can you tell us where you're located?
481 McLean Street. It's on the corner of Shepherd and McLean, right next to Barkerville Fudge.
Okay, so
And
parking's pretty good there then.
sometimes, although
Okay.
parking is on the street is bad, there's a big area in the back of the store for parking.
Okay, and so Wendy, just want to know, how would we get in touch with you? Some of us are online, some of us are on Facebook, some of us just like to do the walk-in shopping. So you tell us how we can get in touch with you.
I have every way. I'm on Facebook. Phone number is 250-992-1117. And I also have email, and that's barefootdivaboutique, all one word, at gmail.com.
Well, that's awesome, and that's good information for us to have. And how long have you been in Quesnel?
I've been here off and on for 35 years. I moved away for a while and did some different things down at the coast, and I love Quesnel, so I ended up moving back.
And you know, we hear a lot of that, don't we, folks? People move away when they retire, or they have a change of heart and do something else, and they always seem to come back. Well, we're really glad you're here. Glad that you've got a great store. I have been in it, so I enjoy the shopping. Now, do you have any special deals coming up for Christmas? I see you've brought a few of your items here, and we'd just like to hear about that.
Sure, I have lots of items for either gifting or for yourself for dress up for those parties. Stocking stuffers, I have new and very gently used pieces of jewelry. They're all able to be gift boxed. New purses, I just got in a beautiful soprano brand new leather purse. I get a lot of really high-end things. Clothing, everything I'm wearing is from Barefoot Diva. And so you can dress however you feel like it for the day. It's affordable and comfortable shopping.
I really like your earrings, by the way. I noticed them. They go so nicely with your sweater.
Oh,
so
thanks. I love
yes.
them too. They're just a little blingy and lots of fun.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you, Wendy, for coming in today. And I have been eyeing up this scarf she's got here, so I think I'm going to have to get a price on that from you. So.
Okay.
Anyways, this is Susan McNeil and Wendy Stevenson for the Home-Based Business segment for today. Thanks, Quinnell.
Thank you, Quinnell.
And before we take a look at the community calendar, we would like to thank the Lions for their continued support and remind you that their monthly garage sale takes place on Saturday, February 23rd at the Maple Park Mall. We're also in the process of arranging an interview with the Lions representative to discuss their peace poster contest and their school reading program, both very worthwhile programs the Lions run in town here. So let's take a quick look at our community calendar.
Well, that's it for this show. We want to hear from you with your story and your comments on our show. How are we doing here at Q Today? Remember, whatever you think is important, we definitely think is important. So email us at qtoday@qcatv.ca with your story, or ask us to cover a story that you know the community would just love to hear more about.
And thanks again to the Friesen Mediation Services for sponsoring us for the next 2 weeks. And as we leave you today, we would like to share with you another of Christine Allen's videos. In it, Christine plays with Jyla and Damien. Notice the neat visual effects. Even though the song is titled Autumn Eves, it reminds our producer of these days when winter is on its way out, I hope, but not quite done, and spring will eventually be coming.
Yes. Remember,
Q Today is about
Quinnell talking to Quinnell. Bye for now.